There are some birds flying in the sky as they sing. They land on the ground as they continue to sing, but get interrupted by Peter Rabbit as he runs and bumps into them. Peter Rabbit, a young rabbit in a blue coat and no pants, runs and stops a fox from attacking his sisters. The fox begins to pursue him, evading it as he makes his way to Mr. McGregor's garden. Peter meets Benjamin Bunny, his cousin, and Benjamin informs him that McGregor is going to mow the lawn, so they have a chance to enter the garden. Peter runs with Benjamin and his sisters Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail. They climb on a tree, and Peter tells them to be his lookout as he enters the garden to steal food. Peter throws some vegetables out of the garden, while the others help him evade McGregor. He gets cocky as he steals the vegetables, and McGregor hears as he accidentally springs a trap. McGregor tries to capture Peter as he is stuck to a fence. Bee, a young woman who loves rabbits, saves Peter and stops McGregor from attacking him. She takes the rabbits to her house and takes care of them as it rains. Bee paints portraits of Peter's family, but they remind him of how his father died while trying to get food from the garden. Bee promises she will always be there for the rabbits. Benjamin and the others apologize to Peter for losing his dad's jacket that he wears. Peter tells them their parents are in their hearts, and the rain stops. The rabbits leave Bee's house and Peter sees that McGregor uses his jacket as a scarecrow. Peter enters the garden and retrieves his jacket, but gets captured by McGregor. He grabs Peter but falls to the ground as he has a heart attack. Peter rushes back to his house with a lot of food and tells his siblings that he defeated McGregor. They run out of the house and see an ambulance take McGregor away. He died of a heart attack due to his poor diet in his old age. Peter and his siblings enter the garden and eat as much food as they want. They open the gate and let the other animals into the garden. The animals have fun eating the food and making their way into McGregor's house. Meanwhile, in London, Thomas McGregor, an uptight and workaholic young man, works in the toy department of Harrods. He walks around as he instructs the employees to make their work flawless. The general manager calls him into her office. She informs him that McGregor, his great-uncle, died of a heart attack. Thomas tells the general manager that he didn't know he had a great-uncle. He asks her about a promotion he's been working for, and she tells him that he lost it to an unqualified man named Bannerman. She tells him to take some time off to grieve, but he doesn't care about his great-uncle's death and begs for the promotion. Thomas steps out of her office, and Bannerman walks to him. Thomas gets angry, wrecks the entire store, and eventually gets fired. Meanwhile, Peter and the other animals have a party in McGregor's house. Thomas plays the violin in his house and hears a knock at the door. The man at the door informs Thomas that he has inherited McGregor's property, which resides in the country. Thomas plans to sell the property and build a toy store beside Harrods so he can ruin their business and watch them fail. He travels to the countryside and arrives that night. A duck sees the car arrive at the house and informs the other animals. They hide as Thomas enters and runs out of the house from their hiding places. The following morning, Thomas wakes up in a messy room and begins cleaning the house. Peter and his siblings watch as Thomas cleans his house and seals all the entrances to the garden. Bee walks to Thomas and introduces himself. Thomas gets attracted to her and she asks him to open the garden gate so the animals can roam freely, and Thomas agrees. Bee walks away and Thomas sees the rabbits walking to the garden through a pair of binoculars Bee gave him. He closes the gate and adds a net to it to stop the rabbits from entering. Peter decides to sneak into the garden, and Benjamin accompanies him. Thomas finds them as they fall from a laundry line and he pursues them. They run into a storage house and hide in flower pots. Peter runs out as Thomas looks through the pots. Benjamin confuses Thomas as he switches from one pot to the other. He runs out with a pot on his head, but gets captured. Thomas puts him in a bag, puts him in his car, and drives away. Peter and the others run to the car and hang on as Thomas drives. Cottontail distracts Thomas while Peter opens the bonnet. Thomas closes the bonnet and drives to a bridge. He takes the bag and realizes that his binoculars are in the bag and not Benjamin. Thomas accidentally drops the binoculars in the water and goes in to retrieve them. Thomas returns to the car while Peter talks to the others. He drives past the house and enters a town where he goes to a store to purchase explosives he'll use to get rid of the rabbits. The men in the store tell Thomas that Bee loves the rabbit, but he insists on getting the explosives. While driving, Thomas sees Bee and gives her a ride home as the rabbits watch. Peter gets jealous as he watches Thomas and Bee talking. They return to Bee's house and he compliments her paintings. He sees her painting of the rabbits and she tells him they are wonderful creatures and shows him how the rabbits apologize by placing her forehead on his. As the rabbits watch, Bee and Thomas begin to bond, and Peter's jealousy rises. They go on a picnic as the rabbits watch, and Bee tells Thomas she doesn't like people who lie. Rain begins to fall as they have fun and run into the house. They lock the doors and leave the rabbits outside. Peter watches as Bee cleans Thomas with a towel and gets jealous. He barges into the house, but Bee grabs him. She lets Thomas hold Peter and tells him she wants to paint them as she walks away. Peter and Thomas begin fighting as the others watch and cheer for Peter. Peter ruins Bee's paintings as they fight, and she steps in and sees it. She gets angry and chases Peter out of her house. Peter meets his siblings and decides that they have to get rid of Thomas. The rabbits begin training under Peter's supervision, and Flopsy accidentally shoots a bird down while learning to use a catapult. Thomas wakes up the following morning and sees Peter on his bed. He tries reaching for him but places his hand on some traps set by the rabbits. Thomas gets hit by all the traps and falls in a wheelbarrow that drags him downstairs. Peter and his siblings celebrate their successful plan, but see as Thomas sets an electric fence. He rubs peanut butter on the fence, and Mrs. Tiggywinkle, a hedgehog, walks to the fence. She licks the peanut butter and gets electrocuted by the fence. Peter talks to the others and says they can't out-clever a fox, but can use its cleverness against it. Thomas looks out of his window and sees that the electric fence isn't working on the rabbits. The rabbits enter the compound, and as Thomas tries to leave the house, he gets electrocuted by the doorknobs. He climbs to the roof but falls to the ground and passes out as some light bulbs electrocute him. Thomas wakes up that night and throws dynamite into the rabbit's house, and Bee sees him. He tells her he's picking flowers for her, and they kiss as the rabbits watch. Peter says he and the other rabbits should prepare for their endgame. Benjamin asks Peter if his plan is about the garden or his jealousy. Peter convinces the rabbits to trust him, and they prepare for their plan. They sneak into the garden the following morning, and Peter steps out. The rabbits hit him with fruits as he talks to Bee. He tries hiding his pain, and she says she'll be painting while loud music plays. Flopsy shoots a blackberry into Thomas's mouth, and he begins to react to it because he is allergic to blackberries. He pulls out an EpiPen and injects himself as he falls to the ground. Thomas gets up angrily as he walks to the tree and retrieves some dynamite. He walks back to the garden and attacks the rabbits with the dynamite. Bee doesn't hear the noise because of the music, and Peter jumps on Thomas's face. A fight ensues and Bee steps into the garden as Thomas holds Peter to the ground. Thomas pretends to be helping Peter and lets him go as he talks to Bee. She tells him that people use explosives to get rid of rabbits, and he says he won't do such a thing. He accidentally drops the trigger to the explosives, and Peter picks it up. Peter detonates the explosives, and Bee realizes that Thomas is lying to her. The dynamite begins to explode, and they destroy the rabbit's home, which is in the tree. The tree falls and destroys the section of Bee's house, which serves as her art studio. Thomas explains that the rabbits detonated the explosives, and Bee calls him crazy. She takes the rabbits and walks away as Thomas apologizes. Peter feels bad because his plan destroyed their home. Peter goes to Bee, and she mentions how she fell in love with Thomas, but regrets it. He enters the house and stares at a painting of his parents. He imagines his parents talking to him, but realizes they aren't. Thomas returns to London and sees Harrods' general manager. She informs him that Bannerman has left the job and offers him the position. Meanwhile, Peter talks to his siblings and apologizes for their situation. Benjamin refuses to forgive him because he is upset, and Peter promises to fix their problems. He asks his sisters to stall Bee from leaving until he gets back. Peter gets on a train headed to London, and Benjamin meets him. Peter and Benjamin meet a street mouse named Johnny and asks him to take them to Harrods. Johnny takes them around London before taking them to Harrods. Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail put carrots on Bee's taxi's exhaust pipe. The taxi driver starts the car, but the blocked exhaust prevents it from moving. Peter and Benjamin enter Harrods and search for Thomas. He sees Benjamin as a girl plays with him and he screams. Thomas chases the rabbits into the store as the rabbits talk to him. Thomas realizes the rabbits can talk, and Peter tells him that Bee wants to abandon painting and leave the countryside. Thomas tells him that Bee hates him, and Peter apologizes for all the commotion he caused. Peter and Benjamin walk to Thomas and tell him to follow his heart. He asks them if they can talk, and they tell him he imagines it. The general manager bangs on the door and demands that Thomas opens it. Thomas and the rabbits run to the window and climb out. Thomas jumps into a dumpster as he escapes the building and runs away with the rabbits. They begin their journey back to the countryside to stop Bee from leaving. Cottontail and the others block the taxi with a deer, and Bee makes it move. Thomas and the rabbits arrive on a bike, and Thomas talks to Bee. He apologizes for destroying their home and says that Peter pushed the detonator. Bee doesn't believe him, and Peter walks to her. He pulls the detonator out of his pocket and shows her that he's the one who blew up the house, not Thomas. Bee places her forehead on Peter's and forgives him. While talking to Thomas, a couple arrives and informs Thomas they've purchased the house. The couple asks Thomas to leave, and the rabbits make a plan to chase the couple away. They rush into the house and rig the doorknobs with electricity. Bee watches in surprise as the couple get electrocuted and pushed away as they try to open the door. They eventually enter the house and see that the animals have overrun the building and are making a mess. The couple rushes out of the house and tells Thomas he can keep it. Thomas thanks the rabbits for their help, and Peter winks at them. Bee gets surprised because Peter can wink, and Thomas tells her there are many things that rabbits can do that she doesn't know. Peter and the others stand together and wink.